This is MC Fireside Chats, a weekly show devoted to the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Brian Searle and Kara Sismadia. You'll hear from special guests that focus on topics to help your business succeed, all backed by Modern Campground, the most innovative news source in the industry.
Welcome everybody to another episode of MC Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searle, and I'm Brian Searle too. We're testing out just 2 cameras here. We're probably not going to leave it on for the entire show, but a new feature of our streaming software. So just wanted to see what it looked like, but super excited to be here with you for another episode of MC Fireside Chats. We are missing Kara Sismadia today because she is right now, as we speak, in the middle of the Canadian Outdoor Hospitality Conference and Expo, having its 3rd amazing run. It is still a virtual conference, but that just means it's more accessible for everybody. And I really think they're going to try to drive to make that in person next year. So super excited to see where that goes. I just finished up teaching a class. I'm going to teach another one tomorrow. I think Mike is teaching a class too, who's on the show with us here. And we're just tons of education and just really excited to see the whole industry come together and learn from each other. There's really no better way to kind of do that. And we'll talk to Joann about ways that she's fostering that with her New Jersey Campground Owners Association in Florida coming up in a few minutes. But super excited to be here with Mike Harrison, one of our recurring panelists from CRR Lifestyle. Really forward-thinking, innovative company. They own multiple campgrounds, developing stuff like that, doing some other cool things in the future here in the industry. We've got Joe Duemig from At My Community, makes cool super apps for your phone where you can do all kinds of awesome things from activities perspective and just making the whole guest process and experience easier. So those are 2 of our regular people that are joining us. We're missing Duncan, who had a last minute thing come up as well. And then we've got 2 special guests here. We talked briefly about Joann, who's the executive director of this New Jersey Campground Owners Association, or is it Mid-Atlantic, Joann? I always mess it up.
I'm the executive director of the New Jersey Campground Owners and Outdoor Lodging Association. But the
Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, but New Jersey, we are the ones that coordinate the Mid-Atlantic Conference.
Okay. So I almost maybe got it right, but thank goodness she was here to correct me. So we're going to talk to Joann, and then we've got Joel Holland here from Harvest Host, CEO of Harvest Host, to talk about a new kind of innovative product that they have launched called CampersCard. So I think we have a jam-packed show for you here. Hopefully you're not here and you're watching the Canadian Outdoor Hospitality Conference if you're in Canada. So we've only got an audience maybe of everybody else everywhere in the world. But where should we start, guys? Do we want to start with our special guest? To Mike, Joe, do you have anything that's kind of really been on your radar the last few weeks that has come up that you want to talk about?
Well, no, I think we should probably start with Joann, considering, at least for myself, we're in the middle of conference season. So it's probably a good place to start for me.
Joann, what do we have?
Hi. So the Mid-Atlantic Conference for campground owners is being held February 27th, 28th, and March 1st. We are going to be in Orlando, Florida at the DoubleTree at SeaWorld this year. We have 10 educational sessions, 30 trade show vendors right now. The trade show is going to be on Tuesday afternoon. And we're looking for a really, really great conference. I mean, the trade show floor is sold out. We're still getting registration for attendees is still open through February 19th for the early bird special. And then after that, the price goes up. But for $250, you get 10 sessions, trade show, lunch and dinner on Monday and Tuesday, and just a good time to be networking with other campground owners from not only along the East Coast, but across the country. And CampersCard, they'll be there with us. So thank you for being a part of our trade show this year. We look forward to meeting you.
Yeah, we're excited to be there, and we have a good team going. I'm not going to be able to attend personally, which I'm jealous because I imagine the weather in Florida is quite nice.
Oh, I keep watching the weather, and it looks like it's going to be in the 80s and sunny every day that we're there. So we're excited. And believe it or not, I've been monitoring the airfare down to Orlando from anywhere along the East Coast, and we've seen airfares as low as $37 to get from Newark, Philadelphia, Baltimore down to Orlando. So, there's still an opportunity for folks who want to come down to jump on some pretty cheap airfares.
I'll be honest. Like when you said that, I was like, I don't know if I want to fly on the $37 airline. I definitely want to come to your conference if I could, but I don't know if I want to fly on an airline that's only charged me 37. Like where are they cutting on?
United American. I mean, it's their regional jets, so it's.
Oh, that's fair. Okay. So,
and I'm pretty sure, Brian, that $37 isn't from you, or isn't for you, Canada.
Probably not. Look, my camera is blurry too. I look better than me.
Someone's asking what day is the show in Florida. So Monday, February 27th, all day are educational sessions, and then there's lunch and dinner. Tuesday, we have educational sessions from 9 o'clock in the morning until 12 noon. Then we have an exhibitor luncheon from 12 to 1, and the trade show runs from 1 to 5. And then we have our banquet and auction that night. And then on Wednesday, we have more sessions from 9 to 12 noon.
I mean, it sounds like a really cool lineup. Why in Florida again? Like it's clearly a benefit. Like I'm nobody's arguing you. How did you end up in Florida? It was during
we went to Florida 3 years ago when COVID hit and everything was shut down in New Jersey and Delaware, in Maryland. The board decided that, they still wanted to have a conference, try to find a place to have it. And Florida was open, and we ended up going to Tampa the first year. It was a success. People they wanted to be together in person. We'd done the virtual the year before. And so last year we were in Orlando, and this year we're back in Orlando again. And people like being together in person.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, absolutely. Nobody's arguing about that. So yeah, super excited to I wish I could be there. Like I've moved to the city, Calgary in Canada, that is apparently on the opposite end of the continent from where Florida is. And every conference I try to go to here this spring is like $2,000 for a flight. So I like you, Joann, but not $2,000 like you.
I understand, Brian. Well, we will miss you. Thank you for your support. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything we can do. I don't know what's wrong with my camera. It's a brand new one I just got today, but it keeps making me blurry and then not making me blurry. So,
well, I'm actually not going to be at this show this year. I'm the only person in our company that does shows, and I have 5 of them next month. So there was 2 or 3 that I couldn't go to last year, so I'm prioritizing those this year. But one of the things I always say about Joann's show
is it's the best. Why aren't you going?
It's one of the ones that all of the attendees will come and talk to the vendors. It's probably, I would say, the percentage of attendees that speak to each vendor, and this is obviously is for the vendors more so than for the owners, but most of the attendees, a higher percentage comes and talks to each vendor. She does a really great job of getting them around and getting them to access to the vendors, access to the campground owners. So from a vendor perspective, Joann, I love your show.
Thanks, Joe. I mean, and I really do stress that to the attendees. I mean, yes, you're there for the educational sessions and for the networking and the fun, but the trade show, we appreciate the support that we get from our vendors and our sponsors. And, I do want to make sure that the attendees get to all of the vendors at the trade show. And we do hear that from year to year that the vendors are happy that, we're not the largest show, obviously, but our attendees do visit with each of the trade show vendors and do their buying and whatever. So I'm really happy about that. So thanks, Joe, for that comment.
Well, and I will tell you again, just from my experience of going to so many trade shows, and I don't go to as many as I used to just because of, again, time and distance, right? But I will tell you that size really doesn't matter when it comes to a conference like that, whether you're just starting out or you're established. It's really just making those obviously it depends on your business goals, right? But it's really just making connections with those owners, talking to them, seeing where you can fit in, provide value to them with either a service or a product as a vendor. And really, ultimately, it's just, you never know who you're going to talk to that may come back to you and buy a ton of stuff 3, 4, 5 years from now. So.
And I'm really careful about when the vendors that do come in, we try to allow 2 vendors from any segment of the industry, so that everyone gets a fair chance. I mean, yeah. And we let the vendors know that, if there's an extra one that wants to come in, that there are already 2 vendors. And so, we want everybody to be able to speak to everyone and not be overwhelmed by just one segment group. So I do try to control that as best I can.
This is a totally different conversation. The first thing that popped into my head was, how do you handle reservation systems? But we won't make you answer that. Joe, what else is coming up for you? You were talking about some other shows that you were going to. So fill us in on the conference schedule here in the spring.
Yeah, so we just got done 2 weeks ago with Camping Carolina, and I saw CampersCard there as well. Outside of the normal conferences, I also attended the Tampa Super Show in January, and again, I saw one of Joel's coworkers. And
Are you
then,
following him, Joel? Or
yeah, I know.
We're trying to be anywhere Joe goes. That's where we got to be,
That's right.
it's true. It's a good metric to follow.
So yeah, coming up soon is Ohio. Ocoa's coming up. I will be speaking at that event. Then NCA, the Northeast Camping Association. Then Wisconsin, the Waco Association of Campground Owners. Camp Michigan will be the week after that. And then we'll end March with Cal OHA in California, Sacramento area.
Is that how you pronounce it? Is it Cal OHA or is it?
Koha.
It was a whole, I thought it was Kaloha or something.
It's Koha, California Outdoor Hospitality Association.
Right.
Used to be Camp Cal now.
Yeah, we all know the letters. I was just unsure how to pronounce it. So
I didn't know it was a single word. So
I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying it appears to be that way. And it's
the first time I went to that one was last year. So unfortunately, last year I had to miss the three in the middle there: NCA, Waco, and Michigan. And so I'm going back to those this year. But then California my first year was last year, and it was a really good show. This year, for the vendor side, they're adding some dedicated time. They had sessions throughout the trade show last year. This year, there's some dedicated vendor time. But again, since it's only its second year back, so I expect there to be a good number of new campgrounds coming around.
Awesome. Yeah, always a good time. I will admit I miss going to all the trade shows quite a bit, but it's got to be a trade-off somewhere. Until I figure out how to clone myself, which I will. And then I'll come to your show every year, Joann. You'll be the first show on the clones list.
Just turn on your second camera again and you're set.
That's a good point. But all right.
Listen, Brian, you could start a road trip now. Just get in an RV and just start heading south.
I can't afford an RV. I'm not rich enough to afford an RV.
We have that's actually what we're doing this summer. Is we have two conferences in June, Arizona RVIC, and then a corporate client of ours in Arizona. And so we are packing up our 6 children into our RV and spending 2 months on the road.
Oh,
Plan on staying at Verde Ranch.
Braver person than I am. Much braver. I would maybe be able to take 3 kids with me. But
what's the fun in that?
I mean,
we're currently trying to potty train our 1 child, and when you said 6 kids, you just made me feel lighter somehow. Like I feel like I can float.
Well, we're lucky. Our boy just went through it, and he went really quick. Actually, quicker than the girls for potty training. So we're just about fully out of diapers, which has been an ongoing thing for 10 years. So it's gonna be nice to be done with that.
Modern campground, cutting edge in the outdoor hospitality industry with potty training. Anecdotes.
I mean, you have to raise the younger generation, Mike. They have to be ready to go camping, and it's never too young to start them. So,
and an RV is the best way to transport them, because once you need to stop every 5 minutes in a vehicle, you realize having a bathroom on board is pretty clutch.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine traveling without a motorhome now.
And let's be honest here too. Like, this is more critical than we know as campground owners, because there are some adults who go to campgrounds who still aren't potty trained, who have cleaned up after them. You know who you are. So anyway, let's shift gears here. Let's talk about, it's a good segue, right? Because Joe is not about the potty training, but Joe is going on the road with his 6 children, going across to probably stopping at a bunch of campgrounds along the way. Yeah, Joe?
Yep.
So how are you finding discounts? How are you finding this stuff? I think Joel might have one solution that might enhance that. What do you have, Joel?
Yeah, so we touched on it briefly, and we have been attending as many of the shows as possible and joining as many of the state campground associations as possible as well. CampersCard is essentially a free marketing program for campgrounds, and it's interesting. Before I purchased Harvest Hosts 5 years ago, my grand plan was to build CampersCard. And I'd owned it, built this website. The idea was to create a perks program for RVers, so you get discounts nice little things like early check-in, late checkout, essentially like what the hotel industry does pretty well with their loyalty programs. I wanted to create that for RV campers. And the issue I realized as I got started was I had no scale. And so even though I could have reached out to a bunch of campgrounds and, tried to get them on board, I didn't have the RVers to communicate with at that point. And so I put that project in the back burner, spent last year 5 years building Harvest Hosts. And now we have close to 1 million RVers who we communicate with, 250,000 paid members of Harvest Hosts, but then hundreds of thousands additional between RV Hacks and Humor, our magazine, our podcast. We basically do, we have a large list, and we've spent, close to $30 million in the last 5 years building that list through marketing and advertising. So now we have the scale. And so this is why now, right? This is why CampersCard's coming out now. It also felt like the right time to start helping campgrounds fill excess inventory. I think last year was the first year where we started seeing a little bit of a normalization in traffic. And some campgrounds, midweek may have spots they want to fill. That's my goal, right? Our mission as a business is to help campers, but also communities. And in communities, we throw all campgrounds, right? Small business owners it's one of my favorite groups to benefit. So what I love about CampersCard is it'll always be free for campgrounds because we have already invested in this, in the database of RVers. We don't have to charge campgrounds anything. And so that's the main thing. And as we've been going to these trade shows, we've been talking to campgrounds and saying, hey, if you have, if you want more traffic, we are essentially going to be telling our 800,000 RVers in April, here are the campgrounds in our program, go check them out. So that's the quick pitch. And it's a very simple program. I mean, really, it's very simple. Our RVers are already spending on average, 30 plus days a year in traditional campgrounds. And we're just trying to help them connect to great campgrounds wherever they're going.
So a couple hard questions, right? I'm gonna act like a journalist, like I should act right now, right? No cost to the campground, but what does the campground have to give the camper to incentivize them to come to their campground as part of this program?
Great question, and we were very, I think, thoughtful about that. It's up to the campground. I'm a big fan of allowing the business to choose what they want to offer, and there are some other programs in our industry that force certain types of discounts. And that's what, that's their prerogative. Our approach is, hey, Joe, you've got a campground. You tell us what you want to offer. If you want to offer a 20% discount, a 10% discount, early check-in, late checkout, these are some ideas. We'll essentially just put that together on a page and tell our members, here's what Joe's Campground offers, you decide. So obviously, if the more compelling you can be, the better. So if you find that midweek you've really got a bunch of openings and you're willing to give a pretty good discount to attract people, we're just the middleman. We're just going to tell our members, here's the option. So totally up to the campground is a long story.
Is there a way that, and maybe you're already doing this, but is there a segmented way where you're going to communicate some of these people who are offering the discounts through CampersCard to RVers who are closer to their region or closer to their home instead of kind of a blanket email to everybody about every campground?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I mean, one of the first things we're doing is incorporating these campgrounds into our map. And so we have, our members are using our app or our website to do a lot of like A to B route planning. And right now on that route planning, you can pop in Harvest Host locations, golf courses, Boondockers welcome locations, dump stations. We added, recently 7,000 dump stations. And now you'll be able to add a layer of campgrounds. And so as people are traveling and route planning, they'll see the campgrounds along their route, but they'll also be able to search regionally. And we're going to give the members the option to get updates based on their geo. So you could say, hey, Brian, do you want us to tell you anytime we, have a new campground in the program in the Mid-Atlantic region? And that could be a flag. But yes, we're working hard to come up with good ways to show people where these campgrounds are located.
And it's not me like trying to hassle you or give you a hard time. It's just my marketing brain working, like, targeting and good drilling down into niches and locations and just making that content not only more valuable to the RVer, but then likely resulting in a higher conversion for the campground that's part of the program. So
Totally.
forgive me I'm not trying to uncover any secrets or give you a hard time.
No. You're spot on. I mean, discovery, I think, as an RVer, campground discovery, attraction discovery, these are some of the biggest challenges. And so we've invested a lot. We have 10 engineers full-time on our team that are building good products to help with that discovery across the board. But everyone here probably knows, like, we all use different tools to try to find things, and some are better than others, but discovery is important.
Well, this is fascinating. We'll talk about this at the end of the show. I want to circle back to discovery. Mike knows what I'm going to talk about already. But while I'm remembering, though, I want to thank our sponsor for the episode, Firefly Reservations. We're going to take just a brief little video play here for our sponsor, Firefly Reservations. We'll be right back.
Did you know most campers prefer to reserve online? Are you missing reservations? Firefly makes it easy to run your campground and accept reservations online anytime. With Firefly, you can quickly message campers, simply handle ongoing reservations, and automate emails and payment processing, giving you back time to run your campground. You can start your free trial today. No credit card needed. Visit fireflyreservations.com to learn more.
So thank you to Firefly Reservations for being a sponsor of this episode of the show. We're grateful for their support and helping you kind of continue the show going, and we can chat with all these amazing people that we have on the show today. So what else do we have? Is there anything we need to talk about CampersCard or anything else? Do you guys have any thoughts? Mike, Joe?
Well, first, Jim asked if that was available in Canada and the U.S., Joel.
Oh, yes. And the answer is yes. We are, so our network of locations with Harvest Host and Boondocker is about 8,000, and about 10% are in Canada, but we're working, to make sure that they're everywhere. It's every province. CampersCard's the same way. We're adding campgrounds everywhere we can. So far, we've only started recruiting campgrounds in the last few weeks. We have about 400 on board. Our goal is to get to 1,000 campgrounds before our April launch to members. And the only other thing I would add, and it's important, is not only is it free for campgrounds, you don't need any special software. There's no contracts. We're not pushing reservation software of any kind. It's simply, hey, tell us if you want to be in the program, submit a short form. I mean, it's that simple. So we're trying to keep it easy for campground owners, because I understand how busy they are. And the last thing that they want is yet another complicated program. So it's supposed to be extremely low lift.
So as a campground, I was on your website right now, so it's not launched yet, right? So right now it just says list a campground. So there's no way to search for it yet. It's not up and running yet.
Correct. So we have intentionally not released this to RVers yet. We are just focusing on getting the campgrounds on board. And then actually we have a gorgeous new website. The current website's, it's just a little WordPress website, but we have a great website in the background that's going to launch with the product in April. And then we're going to do the big splash, which will both be obviously marketing to our 800,000 RVers, but also paid advertising and marketing campaigns are going to kick off in the spring.
So how does this integrate with, like, I obviously know the Harvest Host and the Boondockers, as a campground, it's something we've never been able to participate in because we're not, Harvest Host eligible. So if I think about, reach and, as a campground operator and owner, there's probably 30 or 40 sites. Brian and I have talked about this now for a couple of years of, where do you go to look for an RV site, right? There's not one centralized Expedia.com, if you will. So what, and I don't mean to make this sound so interviewee, but what sets your site? Why should I list on your site as opposed to Passport America, Good Sam, Campendium, RV Park, all the other 30 that we play with? What's your reach and what's your strategy?
Totally. So it is, it's really interesting because I just had this conversation the other day. I don't know. I think it's gonna be a long time before there's a kayak for the RVer. And it's because as a traveler, we're not necessarily just searching for like, show me hotels in Chicago. We're looking for a longer route with dates and it's just different. So we all have different tools for how we approach it. So that's the other thing with CampersCard. It's not an exclusive program. And what we've been telling campground owners is keep using the other programs if they're working for you. It's going to be up to us to show you that we're going to also be beneficial. And by the way, if any of the others, you're paying for, like maybe we end up giving you traffic that makes your life a little easier for less. But we're not trying to be exclusive. So the answer right now, the short answer is I say join them all. So I'm an investor in 4 campgrounds here in Colorado. And as we try to get them up and running, the best way to do that is to get on all 30 places, right? Like, and that's it. Now, luckily, most of them are free. I'm a little more selective before I join something that's paid, but CampersCard is also free. And I'm excited to prove our value. I think the biggest difference we have just we already have a massive reach. And so we now get to use it. And what's neat is we've had a good, as Harvest hosts, we've had a good relationship with campgrounds over the last 5 years through a lot of like education, saying, hey, we're not trying to be the enemy. We're not trying to be a competitor. We're just boondocking 24 hours. We're competing with Walmart and rest stops. We're not trying to hurt campgrounds. This is finally our way to say, hey, we told you, like, we want to help campgrounds. And so we can use our traffic now to come to support it. So I'd say join them all. It doesn't hurt. And once we start pushing traffic, it should be very beneficial.
So I think that my instant question to that is I agree with you. There's nothing wrong with being listed on another site as long as you have the time to manage it. And that's the big caveat, right? If I'm a mom and pop owner, I only have 1 or 2 staff, or I can't hire because staffing is tough across all of North America. How do I decide where to spend my time in general? And then I don't know if that's maybe an underlying question in your mind, Mike, but how do I decide what is most important if I can't choose?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we, obviously we just opened the other property, and we're about ready to open the other 2 campgrounds the next 60 to 90 days. And we have, to Joel's point, a checklist of all the different sites we need to make sure that we're scrubbing and listing, and, part of it's an evolution, and just got to find the balance of, and as you open, you find out, where your source of business comes from and what works, and, where the traffic comes from. And, every property will be different. Every park will be different. Every location will be different, just depending on the traveler and depending on, what type of segment you're getting. So short answer is you just got to do them all.
All right,
and Joel, I'll tell you, speaking from an executive director, the more simple that you make the sign up for the campground owner, the better off you're going to be. Because if it becomes too cumbersome, with 30 other, entities out there doing the same thing, that's really important. You'll see, I think that you'll get a lot more traction by making it as simple as possible for them and streamlining it as easy as it can possibly be for them.
Totally. And I appreciate that feedback, and I completely understand it. My guess is that as a campground owner, the hardest thing every day is figuring out, where am I going to get that extra 5 minutes to help the business. So with CampersCard, it's just a form you fill out, very simple. And then we have a team. We have a team of like 10 or 15 full-time recruiters who will then take that and run with it. So they'll do all the work building the listing. So the campground doesn't actually have to do anything. They don't have to log in. They don't have to build their listing. They don't have to manage anything. So it was, to your point, Joann, like intentionally supposed to be like an afterthought. It should be as easy as just clicking, submitting one form and being done.
Do you feel like, and again, I promise you, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, Joel. I'm just
no, I like it. Hey, let's keep it hard. The harder, the better.
This is not really a Harvest Host CampersCard specific question, but, and maybe Mike or Joe, you all want to weigh in on this too. Is there a certain point where RVers get too much stuff from too many places? If there are 30 places who are all emailing the same RVers on the same list about different promos and come to my site, and is there a point where RVers start ignoring some of that?
For sure. I mean, it's no different than the rest of the spam that you get and the rest of the marketing that you get. And, we've had that discussion ad nauseum because, we subscribe to some of our competitors, marketings, and, how much is the right amount, how much is too much. And one of our competitors, they send out a daily update to their email list daily. And I've blocked them. I've unsubscribed, right? I can't take it anymore. And so I think there's that balance of finding which right marketing message is, and yes. But, I think at some point, the industry, I think, is in a revitalization as, a lot of new capital has come into it as the industry has become more popular. And, and profitable, and much more institutional. The ownership has come in, and at some point it will consolidate, right? At some point, all these different sites, will be bought up by each other, and then a major company might, buy it up, and I think it will, just like what happened with the OTAs originally, right? And there was a bazillion of them 20 years ago, and now there's really 3 or 4 main ones. So short answer is yes, Brian. It's going to confuse the client, but for the customer, but at some point it will integrate and mesh.
I kind of had to take a little bit different stance on it. I think that each RVers kind of found what they like to use. And to Joel's point is he has a large amount of RVers that use something specific already. He's just adding a new set of inventory onto the product that they use to find what they're looking for. So for myself, I know of all of the different services that are out there. I typically use one. And that's the service I use to find, because Joel isn't necessarily
a service. Tell us, Joe. You can't just leave it as a mystery.
Well, no, I'm not going to talk about competitors or anything like that. But and mine is not the same one that most people use. I have specific things I'm looking for. I'm looking, because I'm doing this for business. I'm looking for a number of sites. So
I'm sorry. You were talking about your app. I thought you were talking about a site. That's why.
No, I'm talking about a site. So in particular, I use RV Life most of the time. It has a lot of reviews, so I can see what type of resort it is, and it also has the number of sites. And for me, that's very beneficial. But that's only because I'm doing it for my business to figure out who would be a good customer for me. So that's my need, and so it's a little different than other people's needs. But I think that all campers work that way. They find one that they stick with. I think my father uses RV parking, and so they find something and they stick with it. My aunt uses Harvest House. And so she very rarely stays at campgrounds now, and she would definitely stay at campgrounds. She's not against it by any stretch, but she uses Harvest House because normally when she's traveling, she's trying to find just an off the road spot. And it really works for her. She loves wineries. So it's like, it's perfect. And so, in kind of contrast to what you're saying, is I don't think Joel's pitching a marketing engine for you just to be sending out a bunch of email blasts about your property. It's when people are already looking here, you're going to be one that pops up. And so,
yeah, it's definitely a benefit. I didn't mean to imply that he was going to spam anybody.
No.
General question: 40 places that exist, right?
Oh, for sure. But the thing is a camper probably only uses one of them. So if you're looking at, there's 40 of them. Well, 20 of them have almost no reach, right? And so now you're looking at 20 of them. And of those 20, who has the highest reach? And that's kind of, well, I should say, who of your cohort has the highest reach? Your client, because there's different ones. One of the things though that I didn't know, because I haven't talked to the guys from CampersCard, I like the concept that you allow the campground to decide what how they're helping out the camper. I've heard a lot of issues about campground owners not wanting to give discounts. I pay a fee and then I give a discount to all these people, and I know there's pushback on that, but you can kind of treat it as a reward system where you're giving away amenities that you would normally charge for that have no marginal cost to you. Things like, mini golf or kayak rentals, things like that you can kind of decide. Right. And then you can also play with it, just like I'm sure what Brian would suggest is you try this for a month and see how that works. Well, then maybe we add a discount and it starts working. Or if a discount's working, maybe you pull it back to something else, and you can kind of play with it. I like that idea that the campground owner has control over how they use it.
Do they have to give a discount or something free, or can they just list and?
They need to offer some perk of some sort, because we are calling it basically a perks program,
right?
But it can be simple. I mean, I think it's interesting that early check-in and late checkout has been such a huge thing in hotels for so long, and it's just finally starting to maybe get to campgrounds because it's a lot easier to turn a campsite than it is a hotel room, right?
Agree with that.
So yeah, I've been at campgrounds, and like we've probably all been there. You call a friend, like, hey, I'm kind of running late. Like, do you mind if I check out a little later? And usually it's fine, but you feel guilty. or we've gotten the call from the campground. I was like, hey, checkout was at 11. And you're thinking, well, I know, but check-in's not till 3. So if I'm out of here at 11:30, like, is that a really big problem? And every campground's different, but that would be a huge perk. As an RVer, if I knew I could go somewhere and they said you can get a noon checkout, awesome. I'd probably prioritize that campground because I need to do some business calls in the morning.
So what is your view on this, Mike, from what he's talking about perspective, right? Let's say you do late check-in, check-out, which I think your resorts offer right now, but for an extra cost, pending availability, of course. But what is your view on that versus maybe building a loyalty program, obviously that doesn't work for individual parks, but a CRR loyalty program? Is that a benefit that could be shared? Is that something that has to be exclusive to one or the other? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's, this answer is going to be different for everybody, right? Our parks are larger, right? And so, if we're a 420 site RV spot, our RV park, our 75% is very different, where if you're a 150 site spot, you have no availability and you're revenue managing the heck out of your park. For us, we, have a lot of inventory to fill. So, the answer to your question, I think two things. Yes, one is we are building a CRR loyalty program for across the country that includes the RV resorts, the storage, car wash, et cetera, in general. However, we want as much reach as possible. And so, I've gotten tarred and feathered and eggs thrown at me for talking about Passport America, but it is no different than the third party opaque sites that started with the hotel industry with like Priceline and all those other ones, where you need it when you need it, right? And if you're a larger park and if it's off season and you want as much reach as you can to get heads in beds or fill your empty spots. So I think we would leverage both. And I'm not sure that was your question as to what kind of perks would we offer. I think it depends, right? Is it a discount off? Is it a particular site type that we're trying to and I think that would be a question for Joel is, is it one blank and I submit my listing and my discount and I'm done? Or, can you change it seasonally based on, can you change it seasonally based on what you're, what you have available, so to speak, or be flexible to drive, need areas.
And how do you make sure that the camper doesn't have outdated information if you do change that?
Right. Or they booked it and, you're offering free kayak rentals and now you're 4 months later, when they saw free kayak rentals, but your discount or your perk, I guess is the better way, isn't the same.
And that's the benefit of us, this being app driven. We'll let our members are going to be trained from the beginning that you need to check the perk of the day. Like, this is not, this isn't a listing on a website that has been there for months. This is dynamic, and the campground owners can change it anytime they want.
Well, but so then that's fair. That makes complete sense, and that's a great answer. The follow-up question to that is the 4-month reservation that Mike said. What if they reserve it in advance?
Well, I suppose if Mike knows, someone reserving today for June, he would just have to be comfortable with what he'd be confident he could offer in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Brian, I was thinking to kind of your side, things that they could offer would be even free mugs. There's a lot of people, I'm not necessarily one of them, there's a lot of people that love just getting a free trinket. And if they have your branding and they're taking them to other campgrounds and using your mug when they go to another campground in the morning but around the fire, that's a benefit. It's a benefit to you. It's more marketing. Even though you gave away something that was $5 for free, it's nice.
Yep.
I mean, again, I could just talk from listening to my members. I think one of the things, Joel, that you'll find is the flexibility that you allow the campground owner to have to determine what it is his perk is going to be important. Whether, like you said, whether it's a discount or a trinket or, early check-in, late checkout, for them to be able to manage that for their own individual campground is going to be really important because not everybody's needs are the same.
Right. That's right. And I'm guessing, Mike, that's the issue that you've probably gotten feedback for Passport America, is that they're asking for a lot. Is that right?
Well, yeah. And obviously from a revenue management standpoint, it's really, very, very difficult. And it isn't necessarily, our prices are so high that sometimes the traveler and our offerings don't match, but you want to generate business when you want to generate business. So I think what you're describing, the flexibility of what you're offering, can be is a lot more attractive, so to speak. And I think it's something that we'll for sure explore, and especially since knowing that obviously your reach, with the other sites, and basically because I assume they're all going to integrate. And so the reach with the other sites, also opens us up maybe to a new customer that we have never experienced before through Harvest Host, that we don't have reach to currently, that maybe they're exposed to us. And so I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's what all my questions were geared toward, is what really sets this apart. And I think we found it, right? It's the flexibility. And that's what really sets it apart and makes it easy to adopt, I think.
Yep, flexibility in the audience that we have is probably closer aligned with Mike's properties than not, right? Like 80% of our members are 55 and older, 60% retired, and most of them have a 6-figure disposable income. So it's a wealthier segment of retired traveler. And I think that the resort properties fit really nicely into that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people see Harvest Host as people that are just wanting to get free nights, and I'm sure that there is a section of Harvest Host that's like that. But of the ones that I know, that's not necessarily the case. They're going to wineries already. They like wineries, or they like breweries, or they have an experience that they want to do. Most of a lot of these are people that would boondock otherwise, and so they have typically nicer rigs. I would imagine there's a ton of luxury motor coaches that are on Harvest Hosts, and so those places would be right up your alley.
Well, yeah, and the the industry is changing. I've had this conversation with Connor Schwab, a couple of times, just about Class B campers, right? 10 years ago, you look at the Class B camper as piece of crap, get off my property. But my brother has a Class B, and he is very well to do, and he likes to go boondocking, and but he also likes amenities. And so I think to your point about Harvest Host and some of these other the boondockers, just because you're boondocking doesn't mean you have no income, right?
Or that you always want to boondock.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's the other stat, is that our average member only stays at Harvest Host locations 3 or 4 nights a year. And then they're staying at traditional campgrounds 30 to 60.
So Joel, I'll tell you what, I think that's a really important statistic for you to get out to the campgrounds, because I'll tell you,
I would agree.
Campground owners are obviously not a fan of Harvest Host because of, people are staying in a winery, whatever, or a brewery or a farm or whatever, and those places are not they're not regulated like a campground is, and so there's definitely a disparity there. So that information, I think, is really important for you to get out to the campground owner.
Totally. And we're trying to do a better job of that. It's interesting in locations where we have Harvest Hosts around campgrounds. The campgrounds are always on our side because they always see more traffic. And so I've never had a complaint from a campground near a Harvest Host location, because so many of our travelers come off the road and end up going to the campground before or after, right? Because Harvest Host is just dry camping, and just for 24 hours. And so these are the things we're trying to educate campgrounds on. But it's interesting. There's one down the road here for me in Palisade, in the middle of a bunch of wineries, and they've seen so much more traffic from Harvest Hosts that they actually joined as a campground, which is interesting. Like I don't think we've ever had a campground join Harvest Hosts, but they basically said, we'll offer some free spots for Harvest Hosters, knowing that what they end up doing is hooking up.
We tried that, and I guess that was a couple of years ago, and we tried to list ourselves as a campground, and it was no, as we were trying to attract it.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting. Like I just, it wasn't a use case that I had foreseen, but we're totally open to it. I mean, that's the nice thing, is we play really nicely with campgrounds. The only times those that don't know us or don't have any campgrounds around us, I completely understand the hesitance. And that's why I'm always trying to say, like, we are not competing with campgrounds. And now I'm really excited about the CampersCard program, because we can finally prove, right, like through our actions, like we're going to actually send traffic to campgrounds.
Are you able to tell us or give us an idea, or do you have any data on what are some of the perks that people are offering besides straight up discounts that you've seen come through with the sign up so far?
Yes. And we offer some options as suggestions. They can, of course, come up with their own. But, so it's a discount, typically a discount, like a 10% discount for the full stay, or some are doing like a 20% first night discount, some as high as 30, depending on when they're trying to fill inventory. For perks, this early check-in, late checkout is one of the biggest ones. I mean, that's the largest
Such a
take.
low barrier, right, to give it away too.
I think so.
Especially if you're an RV.
And the value to the RVer is massive,
Yep,
right? So we
sure.
surveyed all of our members and asked them, like, what are the perks you want to see? Early check-in, late checkout. It was the biggest thing because so many people are now working from the road that being able to get to a campground a little earlier to take that call or to leave a little later to take that call, like it's more important now than ever. So that's huge. Some are offering things like free firewood, as an example, or a discount in the store. That's an easy one. They'll say like, here's a percentage discount in the camp store. So it's things like that. It's just taking the stuff you already have and figuring out what's pretty low lift or low cost, but has a high benefit. And I think that early check-in, check-out is one of those that doesn't cost anything really. Now in Mike's case, since he offers it for sale, there is an opportunity cost, but a lot of campgrounds don't do that yet.
Well, and that's true, but I will tell you when I camp, we always try to get out at our checkout time. Sometimes meetings happen or whatever, and a camper, I can feel nickel and dimed if it's 5 minutes after, they're like, oh well, we got to charge you the $50 fee, and I completely understand. I understand the business and that you need to turn those, but also knowing that
stop whining.
Also knowing there's a 2-hour window there where no one's supposed to be there, and you're not actually doing anything to turn the campsite most of the time. So you just, I would be more inclined to pay a higher fee to not have to worry about it, to be honest. Like that's me. I don't like the nickel and dime, the little things adding.
Well, then Joe, that's a great point though too, as part of the member discount, right? If you think about the hotel programs, which are the most evolved, right? If you're a premier tier, one of the perks you get is early check-in, right? Or a late, complimentary late checkout. And it does have value, right? And that costs nothing in essence, to the campground, so that's a big value to the customer and really a no cost to the property.
And as Joel said, it's growing.
Unless you with Marriott and you miss Starwood, then you maybe get a late checkout if you beg. Sorry. Anyway.
But Joel said that, and that's a growing subset. People that are working from home, and I don't know. I don't know if it's still growing. I would expect that it still is. Of people that are working from their campers, and I just had a meeting scheduled. I wonder if I can check in a little bit early.
Yep.
And early check-in even more so because then, you might have them buying lunch or spending money on your amenities earlier in the day.
Well, it's interesting too to think about how this feeds other things too. So if you're on, like, just use Harvest Host as an example, planning your journey, right? And you're going even private campground to private campground, it's interesting how all this feeds each other. If the campground before offered you late checkout, you don't need to arrive early at the next one because you could stay later at the other one. And so it works. It's kind of a chain too when people are traveling cross country. So then if you're staying later at the campground, maybe you're buying more things in the store or drinking coffee or whatever, right? So it all has an effect on the entire ecosystem. It's interesting to think about how that changes campers' behavior overall.
Totally. Also, Joe, with 6 kids, I don't know how in the world you get them up and out of there in time. That's like incredible.
It can be done. It can be done. We have a decent setup with ours. We have a Class A toy hauler, and so we have a lot of distinct areas that we can do things in, and so it's not too difficult.
What are your thoughts on this from a technology standpoint, Joe? And what I mean by that is obviously you've got your app, you're doing some integrations with some of the reservation systems and trying to push some data over there on the campers. Is there an opportunity in the future to integrate with, the PMS of the campground property to know that they're a Harvest Host CampersCard, loyal and they're entitled to late checkout, and to push that notification even if they don't want it and say, hey, your late checkout is available for your stay, and surprise and delight them?
Well, and that would depend, right? That obviously depends on how the technology. I mean, the technology obviously exists. It just depends on if, CampersCard as well as us or any of the PMSs would open up those technologies to speak to each other. So that's what it boils down to, is how much they want to talk. And yeah, we've actually talked about that ourselves. Once we have our integration with PMSs, there's really neat things we can do there to try to bring people in and get them spending money a little earlier. And so that's kind of some of the things that we've been working on. And I know I talked to Mike about it before. And, one of the concerns is that we charge for early check-in. Well, yeah, but if they weren't asking for it and they weren't going to pay for it anyway, and your site's open, bring them in and get them to buy lunch. That seems like a pretty useful use case. And then from Joel's side, yeah, if we could grab, I think it would be, I don't know how the campground owner would feel about it, but if we can tie up the PMS's online reservation with the fact that they are a CampersCard member and just push the notification of this is what you get, now that's going to get more of those benefits are going to be requested, and so that's kind of the negative that you have there. But also, your camper will be delighted. So it's a trade-off that each campground would have to decide on their own.
And I think it would have to be kind of a manual trigger, right? Maybe it's based on availability versus, like I was talking about Starwood, Marriott. Starwood, it was guaranteed. Didn't matter what the hotel said. You got 4 p.m., 2 p.m. Marriott's kind of iffy. So is it a guarantee or is it a based on availability thing?
Not bitter.
I'm not bitter. I'm very bitter. I spend a lot of nights in Marriott. So, but anyway, I think that's a thing too. So whether you offer it as that or not, and I would think it would have to be based on availability, right? Unless it was your own loyalty program.
Well, I mean, everything's based on availability.
Right. Yeah, I think totally campground discretion. I think members would understand that.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm asking is
Mike says, no, not always.
I'm asking it's your choice as the campground owner, right? So is it better for you as the campground owner to say based on availability? I think the answer is definitely yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What else do we got to talk about? We got about 9 minutes left here, guys.
I got a question for Joann. Joann, how are your campgrounds feeling about 2023 compared to 2022? Does it feel like
2023, I think 2023 is going to be probably the same as 2022. We've done, we do camping and RV shows, and we've been to 5 of them already this year. And, definitely people are still out there. The interest in camping is still there. They're looking for new campgrounds. They're looking to travel. I will tell you, the RV dealers have done very well at the shows, even though there's a lot of used RVs on the secondary markets out there. But the RV dealers seem to be doing okay. So I think 2023 is going to be probably similar to where we were in 2022. Obviously, 20 and 21 were incredible for us, at least in New Jersey. And again, it's all weather dependent, Joel. If it rains or we get some storms coming up, that could kill us. But we're very positive and optimistic about the season coming into 2023.
Awesome. That's great.
Is everybody else here too? Mike, Joe, from what you've heard? Are we optimistic?
We are cautiously optimistic. I think, there's so many indicators of concern. I mean, I'm at, I don't know if you can hear the background noise, but I'm at the storage conference right now, and Moody's just spoke and talked about, obviously, state of the economy, state of the industry, state of the finance business, and so much of what's going on. And obviously, what happens? Is it a slow session? Is it a recession? All those things factor in. And the flip side, you can see all the statistics about RVing certainly is a lower cost vacation option. So will that boom again? In a situation like this? It's a wait and see, I think. So we've definitely seen a little bit of change and mix over the last 6 months of far less transient. And so, our current parks are heavily transient weighted. So our long-termers and full-timers have increased as a result, which means our ADR goes down. So I think that's it depends an answer, right? If you're in Florida, if you build it, they will come, right? They're all still full. They're going to be full for the next year. If you're a transient property, I think that'll be a little bit different. It depends on where you are and size of property too. So we're cautiously optimistic. We're not doom and gloom yet at all.
All right. Well,
from our side,
go ahead. Yeah, please.
I was going to say, from our side, I have not really heard any pessimism. Customers, we don't have customers that are looking to cut expenses right now. We haven't seen that, and we're bringing in more customers. We keep seeing more and more luxury RV, like luxury motor coach properties built still. A lot of luxury properties are coming online. And so I don't know, it doesn't seem like they're pulling back any too much.
All right. Well, I'm going to do something uncharacteristic here, unless you guys have something to add. I'm going to end a couple minutes early because I have to go teach a session at CCRVC again or join a main stage panel. So does anybody else have any final thoughts before we leave?
Brian, can I just say, if
Yeah.
anyone's interested in getting more information on the conference, they can email me at Joann, Joann, at campnj.com, or go onto the website, gocampingnj.com, and pick up a registration form there. So
Awesome.
thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah. Make sure you attend Joann's conference. Make sure you attend all these other amazing conferences that are coming up in the spring. Really appreciate you, and sign up for CampersCard. Obviously, of course, it's another.
Thanks for all the info, Joel. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on the show. This is fun.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. We'll see you a little bit later next week.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of MC Fireside Chats, hosted by Brian Searle and Kara Sismadia. Have a suggestion for a future show or want to see your campground or company as part of an episode? Email us at hello@moderncampground.com. Join us next week for another episode. And don't miss the latest outdoor hospitality news and commentary from around the world at moderncampground.com.